So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this live streaming of the ProVaHealth best practice presentations. We're gonna start off. We have 6 themes, I would say, as well. We're gonna start off with the first one, which is the services in the living labs. And the presenters today for that theme is SEANC, Latvian Health Tourism Cluster, and Health Innovation Center of Southern Denmark. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Anda, and I represent Latvian Health Tourism Cluster. So, briefly, our history. So, in 2010, actually, all the institutions, clinics, hospitals were doing the same thing. We were going to forums, to seminars, and we had tons of marketing materials. We were trying to get tourists or patients or investment to Latvia. And that was the time when we established Latvian Health Tourism Cluster with the same vision, same aim, but without any grant. So the beginning was mostly we were financed from members, and we had 23 members at the time. Now we have 60 members. Mostly these are municipalities, clinics, hospitals, and also universities. What are our main services? We are advisory. We are cooperation with governmental institutions. And as you see, Latvia is not a big country, but we have a lot of institutions there. And so during these 12 years, we have really trust, and we have worked with all of them. So we have established also a working group, and we are in this working group. And actually all the needs which are coming from clinics are delivered to all the ministries. So it's very important to see a common national vision to living lab ecosystem or network. The next thing we have, we are in many projects like Latvian Health Tourism Cluster, ProVaHealth, InnovaSpa, Osiris, and Brandpura as well. So we have access to this whole ecosystem and all stakeholders. For SMEs, it's very easy to come to a meeting like that, where they have 60 members from municipalities, from clinics, from hospitals, and to present their idea or their startup. And then it's already each case by case and step by step how they will enter into these hospitals. Then this is project management and coordination, of course, and performance of studies, also in collaboration with relevant institutions, and all the documentation and work with reports and so on. At the moment we are creating, due to this project and because of best practices that we saw, we are creating an ecosystem, a national ecosystem. And we have involved research organizations, state-level organizations, clusters, startups, and business angels, as well as device manufacturers. And we are trying to create a national level ecosystem for living labs. Thank you.
Okay, hello, I come from SEANC, and I present for the situation in SEANC nowadays and what kind of services we have there. So 2 years ago, SEANC decided to develop well-being technology a lot. And first thing was that they bought EPTEC. As you remember, I represented EPTEC before, and we moved to SEANC, so now we are part of SEANC. So our group was 8 workers, and now we are well-being technology team there and started to develop this well-being sector inside SEANC. With us, this telemedicine center moved to SEANC, and it is still one of our centers there. There is well-being technology, and we teach and show this technology is more or less showroom. What else we have? Now we have a new principal lecturer of well-being technology. We have researchers, And then we have writers. Of course, we want a new process, and we have new process. YTE is a new process where we build another center. As you see, there is welfare, robotics, and AI lab, and that center will be built. YTE projects is local financial projects. We have robots there. We have artificial intelligence and things, and this kind of things, and that will be another center where we develop this area and teach and show people what kind of technology is assist. So what else? Simulation lab. We have simulation environment. I think that everyone have, and we have developed the simulation teaching and simulation area a lot. We have cooperation with second level school and our hospital districts, and we developed together this topic. Of course, we have been processing this area and quite much research these things. So a lot of things happen in SEAMK, and we think about all the time how we can develop this well-being technology more and more and offer services for students, for companies, for other cooperators.
I should have played by between those. Hi, I'm Emil from the Health and Innovation Center of Southern Denmark. The Health and Innovation Center of Southern Denmark is part of the region of Southern Denmark, and our role is to support the innovation within the region, both in cooperation with companies and for the hospitals. So as an innovation center, we deliver the services needed to support hospitals, and we have a large variety of competences, so we do not restrict ourselves within one service area or within one part of the development chain. I've included a video which show one development process that we have been part of, but also is a good picture that we are part of the whole development chain. Here's the old psychiatric bed, and we wanted to make a new one. This is the first early prototyping for a new bed, including public-private partners, and then we see the newer model, which were designed by a company. Then we had some testing also with the old model to find out which are the real needs for users, both clinicians and patients. And then we have a later stage model, and at the end we have the finalized model. It's not the best picture of it, but that was from the first part of the idea to the end project, which now is a huge success for a company who is exporting this bed. So we are not restricted within one area, but we are always centered around user involvement. Yes. I don't have anything else to say because we have telemedicine, we have digitalization, we have health robotics, we have new buildings, workflows. We work within every area of development within the hospitals. So. Yeah, and if we should say a little bit collective about services, you could say that we work within, Living Labs often work within one or several of these stages, and many of us where the companies or the needs bring us. But this is only the straightforward development process. Living Labs also support companies in many areas, As Anna mentioned from the health tourism cluster, there is a lot of stakeholder involvement and advisory in different terms in terms of how the infrastructure in that country and the health systems, how are the regulations and so on, a lot about networking and cluster creation. That's also often part of building services within living labs and often in an ecosystem. So this is only the straightforward development process, and then you will have a lot of extra services surrounding this. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start again. So this is the next theme for today. It is called Involving Real Users and Stakeholders. And to present, we have Innovation Skåne, we have FRK, and we have OS SimLab. And I'm sure that you will describe yourselves a little bit in this presentation as well.
Thank you, Marcus. Hello, I'm Fred Kjellsen, and I will start talking about this theme, involving real users and stakeholders. We will describe how we involve our end users or facilities in testing, and some strategies and disadvantages or problems of that, basically. So, but let me first start with who Innovation Skåne is. Have this very short description of us. We're the Region Skåne's innovation company owned by the region. We have a mission, basically, in terms of supporting regional growth and improving services, societal services. With a focus on healthcare, of course, since we're owned by the region who is responsible for that. We have some core competencies, and that is business advisory and development as part of our team. We have support for innovation projects in a private-public cooperation setup. And we have infrastructure for innovation, such as testbeds, living labs, processes, and other structures that we can use and bring into these innovation projects. We're set in the region of Skåne, where we have our ecosystem consisting of the universities or academia, such as Lund University, an old, fairly large university, and also the newer Malmö University, which is growing fast as well. Of course, as we described, we had the public healthcare system and actually public transportation as well. We have also in the region research infrastructure such as the ESS and MAX4 large research facilities. And we're situated in a region with a fairly heavy presence of business within IoT, imaging, healthcare, and such. So that's just describing basically where we're at. But let us move to our other partner, which is Oulu.
My name is Tiina Teroskantomäentausta, and I come from Oulu, Finland, and the organization is Oulu University of Applied Science, and the SimLab is one part of our university, and the university is one of the biggest universities of applied sciences in Finland. We have about 9,000 students, and in healthcare and social services we have 11 different degree programs in undergraduate level, and then also the master level studies. The SimLab, we are working together with two other labs, and we call us Oulu Health Labs, and we are working in Oulu Health ecosystem, and that has been the promoter also this kind of living lab and testing activities. And as a university, we have very close collaboration with the service providers and in different levels, in hospitals, in health centers, in municipality. And that is our strength also, to connect the real users. And of course, we can provide to the companies help in research activities, and we also are connected internationally with studies, so we have a lot of international students, and training the trainers is also one service activity. And with working in the ecosystem, it has helped us to develop services and collaboration with the companies, and that's also because we are joining this project, and it brings together different type of professionals, stakeholders, and our slogan could be that the best practice is interprofessional way to work and collaborate. And the ecosystem has, it's actually it's the bottom, and that is the way also for transnational collaboration. Maybe so.
Thank you. Now I would like to introduce you to the Professor Zbigniew Roliga Foundation of Cardiac Surgery Development. My name is Beata Krawczyk, and I have to say that the foundation is acting in the project as an associated partner. It was established in 1991 in Zabrze, south of Poland, and named by the famous Polish surgeon Professor Zbigniew Roliga. And the mission of the foundation is to develop cardiac surgery in Poland, as well as introducing to the first heart prosthesis in practical use. I will just go through the really main activities of the foundation, as it's although it's a specific activity, they are broadening their horizons and getting more and more activities involved and developed. So the medical devices, of course, designing and development, including heart and surgeon robotics, electronic signal processing, measurement techniques applying, design and development of specialized equipment for tissue and organs culture in close to physiological conditions, modeling methods, supervising, coordinating and conducting preclinical and clinical trials, which was actually a goal for our testing in the living lab. Design, manufacture prototypes, in vitro and in vivo testing of surgical robots and mechatronic surgical instruments. You maybe have heard about the famous robot Da Vinci. It's also one of the professors from Foundation developed. I think we can now go through the common goals and about involving real users and stakeholders, and I hope Fred will help me a little bit.
Sure. We tried to find like the common areas of our three respective facilities, and I think this picture here describes it pretty well. That all of us have like some regional role in growth to get our respective companies get good products out and get their ideas to the market faster and in better shape and so forth. But we also have like a common goal in terms of improving healthcare. So this picture shows that the sweet spot of that is where basically the SMEs and companies meet the needs from the public healthcare in a form of a cooperation or co-creation setup, where you share competencies and contacts between the fields in like a test bed or living lab setup, where the product can meet reality in some ways, and then you can sort of tweak the need owner in a procurement, so that is like done in a more of a innovation friendly way, or actually in an innovation procurement setup. And this transnational dimension also adds scaling to the palette, so to speak, that it's possible to increase the growth rate if we can get the companies go abroad faster. So based on that, the end result is growth, but also implementation and successful and better healthcare. So what is common in this setup? It's that SMEs get access to real users and stakeholders, either through, in our case, we're a little bit different setup, so either through direct access, that is in-house, so to speak, or indirect or networked access, where we go through to other organizations which are closely aligned to us. And we support that with support and coordination and handling of that specific need of the SME or healthcare provider. So we join forces in co-creation setup in the needed stages of the development that this technology is in, to improve the SME innovation process, basically. So in that case, they get access to real users and stakeholders in hospital and primary care, mostly. So we can, that is basically where we shine, you might say. We also add like workshops or interviews and tests. So that is the tools we use in many cases, so, when we work. The synergies of this setup is, of course, transfer of knowledge and experience in both ways. So the SMEs get access to knowledge and experience from the healthcare, but likewise the healthcare get access to knowledge and experience from the SMEs in terms of technology levels and that sort of thing. So the hospital and the healthcare staff get a good feeling from the current technology level that is available or shortly available. It's also that both healthcare and SMEs can focus on need identification and analysis, because in these setups they need to get a step back to what is actual core need of in this area that is discussed. If all of this is done correctly, it results in faster and more successful implementation, because the new developed technology leads to a solution that actually answers the needs that is in the hospital or healthcare system, which improves the chances of it being actually used. So basically, the comment here is that it's success through building experience in a collaboration and cooperation way. Some common issues in this setup or in co-creation setup, where medical device field have a high reliance on IP rights, patents and that sort of thing, is that IP rights is in some co-creation setups somewhat difficult to assess who is the actual owner of co-creation workshop results and that sort of thing, who actually owns it afterwards, so to speak. So what is the best setup to protect both the healthcare staff's ideas and the SME's idea, core ideas. So what's the best setup for that? Other issues that is quite common is that it's healthcare, at least in Northern Europe, is somewhat strained for resources, so it's difficult to get access to staff time and resources. It's difficult to get prioritized in this setup. The reimbursement system in the healthcare to individuals or clinics, it's also somewhat of a challenge to find a model that actually works. Another issue that sometimes arises is that future procurement might be stressed or challenged by having the staff involved in the development of such products. You should try to find a setup where you have someone not involved in the project that can be judging during the procurement process. Some core differences between us. We're three partners with somewhat different places in the ecosystem. For us, we have a strategic role in supporting public healthcare innovation, as we are owned by the region, so to speak. We're involved in innovation procurement on commission from the region, and that's one of our core mission. We also have a regional responsibility in licensing healthcare personnel IP to the industry. Maybe Tina can describe your difference.
Yeah, so,
Hang on.
okay, sorry. As a academy, it has been our challenge to work in the ecosystem and develop collaboration with ecosystem partners and real users in a maybe different way than usually academy. And our strength is that we can involve students to innovation and co-creation projects. All the students, for example, make their theses, and now it's possible to integrate theses and themes in real life processes. And of course, education and training is our strength, so that we can serve also our expertise to our partners. And of course, the simulation environments and developing technology, it's also the possibility to serve a different type of testing possibilities for the companies.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Okay, and just for the foundation, as it's a specific activity, they cooperate mostly with hospitals, also a little bit with academia, but mostly with hospital, as there is access to, they have access to physical lab, but they are also having a possibility to conduct preclinical and clinical trials. So that's why this cooperation with hospitals and all other labs is quite often. Okay, there is something about Oulu that Tina would like to say.
Yeah. Actually, basically during this project, together with my colleagues, we have created services for students, because our main goal is to make for the students the possibility to integrate in the real life processes, and also in somehow the real innovation processes. Here are some examples what we have done. Actually, once per season, we have organized that kind of it's in Finnish edelläkoulusote. It's a social and health forerunners called happening, that kind of morning or breakfast happening, and we have invited companies and stakeholders, students and teachers to join the workshop, and we also have had some kind of theme for those. For example, home service for the elderly or digital distance care. Then quite a new brand is Solutions Hackathon happening, and it means that we get the needs from the real users. For example, youth service or elderly care. And the students, they work with those needs, questions. One day it's a brand solutions. And we also have developed a new study course for the students, and it gives them possibility to join different type of project and testing processes. And we also have produced our products and make prices. Yes, and we also have common e-channel for the real users to send the needs. Thank you very much.
So let's introduce the next topic, the next best practice that we have today. It's about business model and sustainability. And to present, we have actually not the ones that are stated there, but you can present yourself.
Yeah, no, I am still there. But
Yeah, so Gloria and Idékliniken, Region Jylland.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I can see I have to correct a little mistake. We are in region North Denmark, not region Jylland.
Yeah.
That would mean that we have actually taken over another Danish region, and I don't think they. So this is not us on a conquest. This is just a mistake. So yeah, thank you. I'll just start with introducing ourselves a little bit. So this is really. Idékliniken is the clinic of ideas, and in English doesn't really work, but it works okay in Danish. We stole it from Norway in another project many years ago. So in terms of us as a living lab, you can see here, this is just try to put up, first of all, what our activities are as the office, and then a little bit about how we are funded. So as you will see in the next slide, we are between industry and the hospitals in the region. I won't go through everything, but this is kind of where we are. We are a TTO, Technology Transfer Office, and a purchasing unit. For that we get government funding from the regional government and the hospital. Same as in Skåne, same as in the region of South Denmark, that the hospitals are owned by the region, so it's the same budget. We also work with user-driven or employee-driven innovation, so we take ideas, as we saw yesterday morning that Joachim explained from Skåne. So we take those ideas and we commercialize them or implement them whatever we can. We work with these innovation processes. We also work with clinical trials. So we have the Trial Nation Denmark is a network of the Danish regions for clinical trials of pharma and medtech. And we have that office included too, so we can work with different sorts of medical devices for testing. And we have a project management and support, and for that we have some government funding and some project funding. Then we have an incubator, which is funded by Spar Nordfonden, which is a Danish bank. So that's kind of also an option. So and then we have the Living Lab, which doesn't have any funding. But if you take these competences, you'll see that very many of these are the things that you would need to run a living lab. You would need innovation processes, you need commercialization experts, you need somebody who knows something about medical technologies and the testing, and you need project management and support. So we kind of use the funding that we get from this, and then our role here to then place us in the middle of this setup, and actually then, as we also had a discussion about yesterday, that we are not allowed to be so proactive and go out and marketing ourselves as a living lab at the moment, but we still are in the place between industry and the hospitals. And then we can draw on other partners like yourselves, like patients, like whatever, and we can draw on knowledge organizations like our university, our University of Applied Science, and so on. So what really happens here, very briefly, I'll come back later with more on our processes, that we have industry coming in here from the left, addressing us with some products that they would like to have tested, and we then look at the TRL level and see where are we. Here is it just a product validation. Do they need a doctor to say if this is something that can fly or not, or do they actually need a test? And then, most importantly, we look at the resources that they bring, which I'll get back to later on in the day. So, when we have then looked at that, we set up a process, and we go, first of all, back to the hospital, and we check with our clinicians if they find that this product is something that they need. If they need it, then that's all good. We can go further and look at if there are resources inside in terms of time and so on for us to test this, and then we can go into validation. So that's kind of our business model in brief. So I don't think I have so much more to say about that, so over to you.
Okay, hello, my name is Teemu Santonen. I come from the Applied Science University Laurea from Helsinki Capital Region. So being a university or applied science university, our business model is basically kind of driven by the law. We have three main tasks. First one is an educational task, basically meaning that we educate new talents to the working life. Then we have a research task, which is basically meaning that we do a scientific research. But thirdly, we have this regional development task, which means that we help the local regional companies to make a better businesses. And in order to do that, we have to always integrate all three tasks together. And for that, we have selected a certain kind of model which I'm trying to now explain. First of all is the responsible research and innovation is the key driver for our activities, which basically mean that whatever you do in a way, you have to do it in a responsible way, but as well as you should be promoting kind of an fair data, open innovation kind of an approaches. So that is kind of a driver for us. Furthermore, the Finnish Ministry of Education is pushing all the universities to go towards more open data, open innovation approach, and they are actually measuring our level of openness in periodically, and you should be getting higher in order to please the Ministry of Education. And then for that, their values and kind of what values we have as a university is driving these activities, which are aligned together with this open innovation, open data approach. And then recently we renewed our strategy, which has previously and many years already, like 20 years, it has been based on this called learning by developing model, which basically means that we are not giving like normal university lectures, but it's kind of an approach where the students learn by developing things, in which actually all the three tasks, the teaching tasks, research tasks, and regional development tasks are integrated, and we have kind of branded that as learning by developing. And furthermore, we are now pushing towards a model. Typically, previously it was in a way that the insights and information that students were producing as a part of those tasks kind of then remained within the course or between the student and the companies and so forth. So we didn't have like a cumulative knowledge or cumulative understanding. At least it wasn't collected systematically. Now we implemented in our strategy this so-called cumulative data approach, in which we are actually joining forces in a way so there are common activities which are producing this kind of cumulative information. And on the slides you can see that we have these main three tasks, the educational tasks, which is driven by curriculum. Each university have their own curriculums for the different topics, and those are kind of defining what we do. And then we have our funding processes. That's kind of how we see it, like the additional funding. The main majority of the funding is of course coming from the teaching, but we get additional funding from the seeking for publicly funded projects basically. And then of course we have to run those projects as well. And then for our Living Lab approach, we are following this kind of double diamond based model, when you kind of first you understand that you are doing the right things, and then you make sure that you are doing things right, basically meaning the together testing and co-creation together with the users. So basically this is kind of the integrative model in a way that whatever task we are doing in the continuum of innovation process, already from the idea generation or the opportunity identification until to the testing of the the existing products in the market. So we try to integrate always these three tasks: this regional development, education, and research. And that's basically our business model in a way that we couldn't be running the living lab activities as much as we do at the moment unless we would be doing these three things together. So basically we could be saying that our business model is the kind of the living lab is supporting activity for our other main businesses, and we are using that as an integrative way. So the kind of what you should be remembering from this presentation is that at the organizational level relating to business model, your vision and strategy should be aligned to open innovation, living labs and co-creation approach. Otherwise, you don't have the kind of the organizational support. At operational level, also the same thing, because still the living lab activity is a support activity, kind of a support activity. So that has to be aligned together with the hosting organization, which in our case is of course the university, other processes, meaning teaching, applying a new funding and so far. And also in a way it's very difficult if you each time you have a different approach. So aim is to have like also this kind of productized services for co-creation and living lab activities. So the teachers who are running the courses will understand that how you can run the living lab activities as a part of your course. So our customers, the companies and public sector players know how to use the what are the possibilities for the living lab activities, as well as in a way that when we are applying a funding, each time you have to write a funding application, it's easier than if you have some kind of productized services. And also in a partnership level, it's very important that there's a deep, continuous and repeating collaboration between these corporate health actors, which means that they are familiar with your approach. Okay, thank you.
With a theme that's called SMEs value proposition, attracting, process and pricing, and the presenters are Innovation Skåne, Blood Medicine Cluster and SEAMK.
Thank you, Marcus. We will talk about our value proposition and how we attract and the SMEs and the process for handling SMEs and the pricing discussions that we have today in today's talk. I'm Fred Kjellson from Innovation Skåne, which is the region's innovation company. So we're fully owned by this region, and the region have the responsibility of the public healthcare system and also public transportation and regional growth. So we have basically two main missions, which is regional growth and improved and better public services. In many cases, that is in terms of better services of healthcare, and we achieve these goals through our core tool, which is innovation. We have various of competencies and resources, but maybe the main three can be divided up in business advisory and development support for SMEs and growth and scaling. We assist and support private-public cooperation in innovation projects and innovation procurement and such. And we have in our organization infrastructure for innovation, such as test beds, living labs, knowledge management systems, and supporting processes. I will just describe our ecosystem in some short ways. We're situated in the region of Skåne, and the region have a fairly large footprint of academia, consisting of Lund University, one of the largest in Scandinavia, old since the 1600s. We also have in Malmö University, which is new, I think maybe 2 years old, it was founded, but growing rapidly. And we have large research facilities and research infrastructure in terms of ESS and MAX4, which are scientific beam lines to look at material and look at different finer aspects of science. As I said, we're owned by the public healthcare, so in the system we have need owners such as Region Skåne and all its areas, primary healthcare and secondary and tertiary healthcare. We're also in a region with a fairly large focus towards IoT imaging and sensor technology. Also healthcare, medical device and life science areas. So diabetes and nanotechnology and such. I will leave the mic to Ludwig.
Thank you. My name is Marzena Stroksadło, and I'm working for the city of Lublin. Lublin is the biggest city in eastern part of Poland. And 5 years ago, in 2014, as a city of Lublin, we established together with Medical University of Lublin, Lublin Medicine Cluster. And nowadays we have over 140 members, and what is important when we are talking during this ProVaHealth project about testing, so which is the main topic, that we have 10 public hospitals involved in cooperation in our network, more than 50 private medical services providers, including private clinics and private hospitals. We have more than 50 technology-based companies and 10 university and scientific institutions, mostly from the region. And during these 5 years, we have been able to establish a very effective cooperation. We are working nationally, and we developed national and international cooperation, working very effectively with other entities, institutions, and clusters. And what is very important for the startup ecosystem in the region, and for those startups who wish to test very innovative solution in the region, we have strong support from the innovation ecosystem from the region, which consists of two sciences and technology parks, two acceleration platforms, more than 13 incubators. We are working with investment funds and investors from the business angel network. Because most of the solution in health and medicine nowadays, they use different solutions also from IT. So we are very happy that in the region we have also very strong ICT ecosystem. Only in Lublin we have about 700 IT companies, and more of them want to join us also in Lublin Medicine Cluster as formal members. And because we have very different entities in the cluster, so we have very different competences and expertise. So we have very broad approach to development and to opportunity of testing. So we can arrange testing in health in field of e-health, including telemedicine and medical robotics. So we may work together on development of different solutions. For example, in veterinary medicine, and we're very strong in this special field. We can develop different solutions in functional food. We can work on medical devices. There are many diagnostic solutions in the cluster already, so we have all those competences for testing diagnostic solutions, also involving the companies, startups from abroad.
Hello, my name is Sami Perä. I come from Seinäjoki, Finland. So we have started to develop this well-being technology area a lot in our university. We have done this work over 20 years already, but now that is one our key point to develop this well-being technology. What we have living at welfare technology centers. We have 3 centers there, 3 different kind of centers. There is simulation area, simulation centers. There is robotics and artificial intelligence centers, and there is one showroom. What we use with students, cooperators, private sector, of course, companies, and public health sector. We have now new project intensive, and this intensive give us possibilities to discuss more deep with policy. This process, we have stakeholder group from our region, and we have started to discuss example ecosystems and how we can go deeper and deeper in this level. Then we have many kind of other processes in our university. I think that we have approximately 100 projects, and maybe 15 are international projects, I think. In our well-being technology sector, we have approximately 5 to 7 international projects who give us very good possibilities to go forward. In this slide, you can see our cooperators and our ecosystems, what we now have started to work more and more in our area. With this group, we have discussed this value proposition things to SMEs. We have noticed that we have common areas in this sector. We can give decision support to obtain a better product market fit, and of course we have possibilities to give contact point to SMEs and other organizations, and give possibilities to coordinate and test together with public health centers and other cooperators, and of course with SMEs. We need these startups in our area, and we have possibilities to give this kind of possibilities to startups that they can develop their products more and more. Then we have quite much experts, and we can always consult experts and end users and give advice services for SMEs. This network is very important for SMEs and startups when they have started to develop products. We have some key points in our group. Innovations Corner. They have system, demand, knowledge and advice, usability, healthcare economics. In Dublin, they have key points on infrastructure, equipment and human resources, ability to coordinate, innovate, process in the ecosystems, and our key points is access to physical, level up with equipment, systematic, desk group, setting. Attractive.
Yes, and another area within this thematic presentation is attracting, how we attract SMEs to approach us. Basically, you can say all three of us have a good reputation through track record. We've been operating for a long time. We're like a trusted living lab coordination, both internally and externally. We are, all three of us have a good network, both regionally, nationally, and also internationally, based on our long track record, basically. And we all of us have easy access to the ecosystem and regional stakeholders in this field. Some differences within this attracting area is that, for instance, we work a lot with business advisory to SMEs. We also work with creating community meeting as a core feature in our setup. Our focus in many cases are international scaling of SMEs. So we know that Sweden is too small to survive in the medical device area, so they have to go abroad. So we encourage them through various tools and ways. And based on our core goals, we think that we are located in a sweet spot between innovative companies and leaders. Lund Medicine Cluster have the opportunity to test in different fields of health and medicine, and access to the local area, local knowledge, and very broad access to experts and end users in the network. Very effective promotion of their living lab in activities in regional, national, and international media, for instance. And then SEAM's core point were like 20 years of experience as acting as a contact between companies and the South Ostrobothnian stakeholders, both within social work and healthcare, and both in technical and business areas. If we then go to the next area within this, we have like a common process of how we handle questions. So we get contacted by the SMEs, and then we have a dialogue and try to understand their needs a bit, and try to see where we can assist them. And then we try to find like an agreement of sorts, and then we enter the test phase, so we know what to do when we reach the test phase. We also work within the development phases of a product that I guess tries to answer if the market actually exists or if the market is sound. The conceptualization phase, where we look at what features are needed for that specific product. Proof of concept phase, but how can we achieve product market fit, and what will the financial result be? And then validation, prove that the product does what it says, basically. And then in the implementation phase, it's basically to see what if we can procure new innovative products or assist some other entities to procure it.
Place at the market, product at the market, not only within procurement, but also generally to place it. But procurement can be involved, of course. And what is very important for every business is pricing as a very important element. of working together. And from my experience and based on our knowledge from the project, we know that already that so far the legal framework and process and documentation and pricing is not standardized in any living lab, so it should be our purpose, task and challenge for the future to think in to which scope it can be standardized and in which fields. First of all, regarding of course pricing when only it is possible. So it is a common challenge for all living labs involved. And for future, what is important and for innovations come because you are funded by the region, and and you will be in your innovation projects. You will be funded still by the region, and you will be mostly focused on regional priorities, I guess. And you will be funded by the project which will be focused on those regional priorities, if I am right. And regarding Lublin Medicine Cluster, and because we are public authorities, so we cannot be directly involved in testing, but we have a strong ecosystem, so for sure we will work as a one contact point, and what we are doing and what we always can do for companies, for SMEs, we coordinate the cooperation, but every SMEs with our suggestions for the partners, of course, has to negotiate and set the condition for the testing, including the documentation and pricing individually. And SAMC is a part of University of Applied Sciences. So the priorities for SAMC will be different tasks from education area and delivering consulting for companies, and there is opportunity to offer demonstration room for startups, for innovative companies also.
Activities, and we have Idékliniken, Laurea, and Uppsala Neurological Center to present.
Since it's my slides, I might as well start. So just to this is just a short sum up of the last otherwise I'm going to get too long. So this is just a summing up of the last presentation. So back to our business model. So as I said last time, you can see over here to the right, we have a little bit about our roles and how we center ourselves in the middle.
It's good if you repeat it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll repeat it. Sorry. No, because we have different roles in our region, and most of those are paid for. So we are a technology transfer office. We are a purchasing unit. We work with user-driven, employee-driven innovation processes. We work with clinical trials. And we work with project management and support, and all these are mainly funded by our region. Then we also have some projects that support these project management and support functions. And we have an incubator, which is also project funded. And all these competences together allows us to run a LimiLab, because it's kind of just mostly the same processes, because when we run a commercialization, we contact industry very quickly, and then it's more or less the same testing process that runs. It's just a question of where it's initiated. So again, you can see to your left here, you have industry coming to us with a product. Then you have we evaluate where they are in the process and if they have any resources. And that leads me on to this one, which is ever so slightly more complicated. But you know, so you have industry coming in here. If they do have some funding, then we can run a clinical trial, we can run a test, we can run a co-development project. But the first thing is, no matter if they have funding or not, is we need to stop up and find out, do we have any clinicians that have an interest in this or have resources to actually run these tests at the moment. If they do, then it's fine, we can run. If they have funding, we can run a process and move over here to the hospitals. There are more hospitals in the region with more different competences, so depending on what it is, that's an option. If they don't have any funding, then we can ask them to go out and find some funding and come back, and then we can move down here again and set up a trial, or we can help them find some funding. If they do not have some funding and there's no easy pickings in terms of funding, we can move over to the box over here that says co-development project, because then it's a question about IP and who owns the IP and how we can maybe share some of that or help them fundraise. So really we'll set up a business plan with them and a project plan for the testing, help them with the fundraising and so on. Then we have another option to the far right, which is our Health Hub funded by Spandau Funding, which is kind of an incubator where we have contact to the university hospital, to the university in Aalborg. So we can draw on the competences there. We can also find funding. There are more possibilities in the incubator. There are funding for instance, proof of concept and so on. So these are all different ways into the hospital. And then I have a brief example that also shows a little bit about how long it can take before there's actually value added to a product that comes in. So back in 2010, we had just been running for a year or something, a little bit more than that. We had an idea presented to us for an intelligent transportation box, because a lot of the tissues and blood samples and whatnot that was transported between, for instance, the GPs and the hospitals and the laboratories didn't survive intact, so they really were of no use in terms of seeing anything really. So we had an idea, and then back in 2010, then we found validated the idea, and that took us some years before we then had a collaboration going in 2013 with some industrial partners. So 3 companies that provided hardware, software, and some other knowledge. And then we got funding, 4 million Danish kroner, to run this project. Then that took us to 2015, where we had a prototype that was presented to the management and at least the politicians, who all thought it was a great idea. Didn't really want to commit to buy anything, but initially it was a great idea, they thought. So that took us then further development from the prototype to further testing and so on and so forth to 2018, where the first order was actually received for this product. And then a company called Healthcare Apps is set up. So that took like 8 years, and this is a fairly simple product that isn't really it's not something that goes kind of inside a patient or really something very complicated. So it really takes a long time for something very simple from an idea to it's implemented in the hospital. So these are sort of the kind of processes we can help on from start to finish. And
I'm Kadri, coming from Estonia, from Haapsalu Neurological Rehabilitation Center, and within the ProVaHealth project we have been kind of piloting being a testing center. And Haapsalu Neurological Rehabilitation Center is usually or normally doing neurological rehabilitation for inpatients and outpatients. And we are kind of specialized in spinal cord and brain injured patients, children and adults, which means that the context for testing is kind of clear from the point of view of the end users, but it's quite wide regarding the things or methods or products what could be tested. And which is good from the point of view of being a testing center for somebody either from nationally or transnationally, is that we do have a great professional knowledge within that specialized center and quite a number of patients to do it, and a kind of an innovative way of looking at rehabilitation or product or method development as well. But within the piloting process, in this ProVaHealth project or outside the project in more informal ways, the experiences have been kind of mixing on our ways of putting together a puzzle of building up kind of a business model out of it. Because what we see that even though that testing should be something to which the developers maybe end with a kind of certain question or idea already what they want to be tested, we often see that they are actually more after a very quick kind of an expert input what they want to have. And so we are often seeing us in kind of helping with developing the methods and getting out of the questions from them and trying to understand what is actually the point. We have often also seen that although they are starting with asking could they test something, then actually the product is maybe not ready for actually testing it, but they do need help in putting the content in and making it maybe more like product-like or even are in the very starting of the development of something. What we have often seen us asking from ourselves is that actually there is the border between giving an expert opinion and building up kind of a scientific-based research project to giving out those answers. And where we see the threat and why we are asking it is that we see that maybe sometimes the testers, so to say, are using this expert opinion in a too generalized way, that they get something, an expert opinion based out of it, but they do too wide conclusions for their product development or whatever they are after. And as you have already heard, what we are also facing is the question that who is actually going to finance it. So we definitely see from our point of view that if there is no project or actual, I don't know, sponsors or kind of external money, then they are really struggling with the financing questions. And we have also quite often seen that the developers didn't have their own financing possibilities for doing the testings. And as you can probably understand from your own experience, then the clinical situations are a little bit different from their everyday work point of view, that we can't actually use the experts as therapists or doctors in doing this kind of helping stuff. So this is probably the thinking point, how these testing centers, specialized testing centers are actually going to fit into those national or international living lab concepts in a wider way.
Hello, my name is Teemu Santonen. I come from Laure Applied Science Universities for Finland, and we operate in the Helsinki capital region. And by the legislation in the Finnish law, applied science universities have three main tasks. One is the teaching, which is of course the most important role for us. It basically brings out the majority of our funding. Then we do research, scientific research through different projects. And the third task for us is the regional development. So basically meaning that we help companies, public sector actors, and in general making the region more better place to live and more prosperous. And for that basically means that all our activities are integrated throughout these three main tasks. And for us, we have been selected what we call learning by developing pedagogical model, which basically kind of integrates all three things together. And for that, I will be showing one example about the activities, how you can actually integrate all of those three things together. In here, this is the basic framework, and if you would like to know more about that, this was in the other video. It was explained more in depth. But basically, we follow like a double diamond service design model called double diamond. First, you think about developing the right things and then developing things right. And for that, we show like approach called Open Innovation Camp. And what is Open Innovation Camp? It's kind of a co-creation sprint type of multi-day event, which is grounded on Open Innovation 2.0 principles, basically meaning that the traditionally open innovation was first kind of seen as a company kind of operating between the clients or the two other stakeholders. And Open Innovation 2.0 is kind of more reflecting to the quadruple helix model, where you have all the players, public sector, end users, private companies and academia working together to solve these goals. So basically it means that we have a group of carefully selected stakeholders which have like a diverse but complementary expertise, and they aim to create a common understanding or common solution for some specific, typically complex societal challenge, like circular economy or how to run healthcare services. And typically there is like a predefined challenge and there's a set time frame. And the time frame and challenge of course can be varying to different things. So main phases for this Open Innovation Camp approach is a planning phase. Basically meaning you define the scope and topics for the challenge, and you have different types of actor. During that you have the orchestrator, who is basically orchestrating the whole innovation camp activity. And then you have what we call group owners, who are kind of owners of those challenges. They prepare materials, background information, define the duration and the structure of the camp, and select the tools or to work, and so forth, and recruit all the participants. Then during the implementation phase, you are actually carrying out the open innovation activities. And in the communication phase, you share the final deliverables to all the camp participants as well as to the wider audience. And you try to engage them to the forthcoming Living Lab activities and remain in contact with the open innovation participants. And when I'm talking about the managing the participant diversity, there's a different things like cultural, organizational, user, cross-functional, and disciplinary. Basically meaning that you have to have like all different types of groups over there. Open Innovation Camp process is basically 3 phases. And the first phase, you get to familiar with each other. And the phase 2, you are co-creating the solution. And in the final phase, you are presenting the results. And in order to do how this fits for the Living Lab activities, there are typical challenges which are related to the Living Lab activities. You have unbalanced stakeholder representation. So basically you manage that, you take different stakeholders to the camp, so that's solved. Lack of time and financial resources, this is typically quite fast process, few days, and it's typically pro bono, so basically participants don't get paid for that. Silo effect in co-creation activities throughout managing the group work during the camp enables that different types of groups work together, and the co-creation and Living Lab process is actually a process, so this kind of easily launch all the activities. Conclusions, it's a good tool for solving complex societal challenges rapidly. It's effective solutions for engaging stakeholders who do not know each other, and it's a basically predefined structure which is carefully planned. Group interaction between the complementary actions.
Let's briefly introduce the last best practice presentation. It's about impact and result assessment. And we have Sam, Innovation Skåne, and Region Zealand to present this today.
Thank you. My name is Ville Kulvainen and I come from XAMK, which is Southeastern Finland University of Applied Sciences. And yes, today we are going to talk about impact and results assessment, but first let me introduce you XAMK. So we operate in the Southeastern Finland in 4 campus towns. On the RDI side, XAMK is the largest one in Finland among the universities of applied sciences. So we have a lot of external R&D funding, a lot of projects going on all the time. But I'm representing Active Life Lab, which is a new research and development unit in XAMK. We've been operating for 2 years now, and we are focusing on effectiveness of well-being services. So we operate in the prevention side, keeping people out of the healthcare and hospitals. So that's our goal. Our main task is to run research and development projects. There you can see 4 projects that are running right now. And of course, as a university, we are also education environment for some students and degree programs. And then the partnerships with mostly companies. This is where we kind of validate our expertise. So we make sure that there is a market need for our expertise. We offer services for companies, and also we like co-produce services in cooperation with companies. Yes, and then the impact assessment team. This is a team that can be approached from many different perspectives, but I'm going to represent or present you a model which is called chain of impact. So this is a tool that can be used to analyze and develop the impact that your organization has on the society. So it's a tool for impact assessment, but it is as well a tool for development and leadership and management. So by using this chain of impact, it's all the time like developing your own organization and making it more effective and more impactful. So there is seven steps on how to reach impact on society, and of course we have to start from the need or the demand what we are trying to address. For us at Active Life Lab, I have to say that we have already also started to work on this quite lately. So this model here, I put some examples of how we've done this work so far, but it's not that we have already implemented this into practice, but we have started this work, and it will take time to define all the steps. But this is an example for you how to apply this tool. So for us, the demand that we are trying to address is to help companies to prove their service effectiveness and that way to succeed in the future health and well-being service market. But yes, then vision. You all know what is vision, high level goal, which needs to be clear. Then, of course, targets, and targets should be something measurable. So it's linked to the results. So we have to have targets that are the kind of targets that we are able to measure later on. Then the resources, inputs and the outputs. This is kind of the easy part of this chain. Of course, what kind of resources we need: financial resources, expertise, staff, and so on. And then the outputs. What do we do to reach our impact on the society? And then, yes, the results. This is the change that we want to reach in our target group. And when that change is happened, it enables us to reach the ultimate goal, which is the impact on the society. And for us, for example, the impact that we want to reach is the shift in the resources to the prevention or to the preventive side from the when we have a proof of the effectiveness of health and well-being services, we see that we can contribute to the change to the preventive side on the resources of the society. The indicators then briefly, of course you need to have many different indicators. Starting with the process indicators, these are the easy ones like numbers and euros and what do we do, how many people we reach. Then it becomes more difficult when you go to the results or performance indicators. And the most difficult part is the impact indicators. So, and that is also a long-term goal. You cannot measure the impact right. It will take time to show the impact on the society, but that's the ultimate goal. Okay, I will now thank you and pass over to Fred.
Thank you. Very interesting. I think we can all learn from this. I will try to harmonize, or my slides will, I think, in some ways build on this, focused on a specific area. Right, I'm Fred Kjellson from Innovation Skåne. We are the region's innovation company. So we have two main goals: regional growth and improved societal services. Both of these are we use the tool innovation to reach. So we can describe our core competencies in some short notes, such as that we have business advisory and development to improve and help and assist SMEs to grow and scale. We use innovation projects to support private-public cooperation, such as procurement projects or co-creation projects and such. And we have infrastructure for innovation, such as test-bed living labs, knowledge systems, and processes. We're part of the region of Skåne, which have a high presence of academia, both Lund University, old since 1660s, and a new one in Malmö University, founded a couple of years ago. High presence of research infrastructure in terms of ESS and Max4, two very large sites. As I said, we're owned by the region Skåne, which is responsible for public health care and public transportation and regional growth. And we're situated in an area with a high focus on IoT imaging and IT, but also a high number of businesses in the life science area. Now let's move into the thematic area. If we talk about impact and impact assessment, I will focus on impact assessment of the solutions specifically. So in this case, measurement and measurement strategies are needed. So basically, when you look at the solution, how can and should this be assessed? What framework can we work with? Can we use health technology assessment? Is it a suitable tool? Yes, it is a suitable tool, but health technology assessment is based on a large amount of evidence, which is for new emerging technologies, usually not existing to a large degree. So we need to find a good way to assess newer solutions. One way to do it was in a project we collaborated in previously, which is called NUTEB. We looked at the innovation process and the measurement process. As you can see here, it's basically you have to look at it from a phase perspective. So if you have an idea, then you need to develop insights and project design, develop pilot testing, and look at implementation, and then realize the benefits. And basically, you have to look at in the first phase of the idea. You have to look at what benefits are expected. So, what's the overall goal? Who will be affected, and so forth. And then you have to design the measurement method. So, how can you measure? What do you measure? How do you protect the privacy and that sort of thing? And then collect data. Next phase, analyze and prepare, and so forth. And one way to see what data points you should look at is to try to look on three core areas. So that is basically the efficacy of the solution, the efficiency of the solution, and the satisfaction of using the solution. So that is what are we reaching the goals we want? Is this way of solving it efficient? And is it easy to use, or are the satisfaction of the user high? And in its core areas, it's very easy, but the whole setup is that it should be approached from an iterative point of view. You go through an iterative process where each step increases the complexity of the measurement tree, or the measurement domains, basically. So, and another way to look at it is from a perspective of who come in contact with the solution. So for this here, it's basically patient and next of kin in the first paragraph, or first row, and then staff, and then the effect on hospital and municipality, and then societal effect. And then you end up in basically what can we measure, how and when can we measure. So you have a number of different aspects that you can put into your measurement matrix. And this is can be seen as an inspiration. I would like to add one point also. It's that e-health solution, you sometimes end up in a setup where the actual measurement in itself increases the number of reported outcomes. You need to have a robust measurement solution that actually doesn't end up with making your solution look worse than it is, because suddenly maybe you're detecting more incidents because of your solution that were not detected previously but still happen, so to speak. Thank you. I'll leave it to Erik.
Yes. Hello, my name is Erik Brander from Region Zealand in Denmark. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our living lab systems in a slightly more broad sense than one would normally consider, because we have more elements of living labs in our region. But first I would like to say that the region of Zealand is one of the 5 Danish regions, and it's got about something like 840,000 citizens. And the Region Zealand organization runs hospitals, 7 hospitals in the region, and it's got 18,000 staff members and lots of units, obviously, within the hospitals, but also within administration. I personally come from the part that supports hospitals by running part of these living labs. Now, if I move to the next one, I think it's been mentioned before that the role of Danish regions has changed somewhat. Since 1st of January last year, 2019, we're not anymore required or responsible for supporting business development the way we used to be in the past. So we've had somehow to reorient ourselves as to what when it comes to healthcare innovation. And that's why I put it in this slide that if you can see that we have sort of 3 tracks. The number one, the top one is what we call a PPI platform. This is what we use when we want to engage the outside world in our needs and so on. I'll leave that for the moment. But the key issue for today, for this presentation, is what we call proposed projects by the individual units, and they are somehow run, or they represent the needs of the organization and hospitals. And that's what I'm going to deal with in more detail in the next slide. But anyway, the third one is what we call one point of entry, and this is representing a kind of entrance for individual companies when they have needs or wishes to cooperate with our region. This is part of a larger system now. It's called Triangulation, and it's been mentioned before. It's a little complex system, and it's not yet fully somehow organized, and the operational part of it is not fully developed, or you may say defined in detail yet. So that brings me back to the first track, or rather maybe the second. It's called Projects Proposed by Units in the Region. The point is that the region would very much like to address the needs of hospitals, departments, wards, anything where you have challenges and problems, and this is somehow addressed in such a way that we've designed a system whereby the individual departments can approach what we call the steering group for innovation, and through this system they can first of all they can receive funding, they can receive support for their project ideas, and they can somehow also receive assistance for the whole innovation process. It works in such a way that we follow what we call the DIA process, which is used by the region in general. Yes. Okay. But let me just, in that case, say that these 3 different phases are being used for all the project ideas and applications to go through, and then this will somehow describe the way we look at it. It follows what we have heard before, the impact chain. We normally call it the intervention logic, where you define the needs of whatever you're doing. In this case, we would like to have some way of channeling ideas and project applications from the departments to a system whereby you can screen them. We formulate a vision for this system with targets and defining resources and outputs as well. And the results, without getting into all the details, would be that a number of projects are being somehow screened and run through the first phase, the development phase, or we call it discovery phase. And a number of other projects go through the discovery, as well as what we call incubation phase, which is the actual development phase. And a number of projects go through an acceleration phase. This is where you commercialize the projects or the solutions developed, and you scale them up and use them at the various departments and throughout the region. Well, I should just quickly mention that the projects are carried out by those who apply with the assistance of the Secretariat or the Steering Group of Innovation. And then eventually, to the extent that projects develop solutions and they are being implemented and scaled and so on, they a great impact, obviously. And as discussed before, in this case here, it's the same thing as we talked about before. It's effectiveness, efficiency, and not least enhanced quality of healthcare services. Patient satisfaction is a very important thing, and also satisfaction of staff members and occupational health. We have indicators for all these different measures, you may say, both at the result level and the impact level. But I think that Fred went through it quite carefully, but it's looked upon from the inside point of view, it's not from the business point of view. I think that summarizes it. Did I really spend that much time? Anyway, I think that's it.
Thank you very much, everybody. I think you should give yourself a round of applause, all the presenters. Well done. I think that will be the last for this live streaming as well, and we will continue the event here.